The elementary mathematics program director, and facilitating the session with me is my colleagues, Stacy Solomon. Stacy, you are muted.
Yep, I got it. Hi, I'm Stacy Solomon. I'm the K-8 program director.
And I am Armando Segura, the high school program director and district coach.
And we are so blessed to have in our midst Sarah Cheng from the Office of Technology. Sarah?
Hi everyone, I'm an instructional coach with BPS Technology. I'm here just to kind of support the chat today and help make sure things run okay, best as we can with the technology side of things. Great to see you all.
Thank you. Next slide.
Okay, so we're not really going to go over this. Hopefully, if you've been in BPS PDs lately, you have seen this. This is sent from all of the BPS, or should be in all BPS PDs. I'm just going to let you know in the chat right now, there is a link to an interactive agenda, and that's where all of the links will be populated. All the things that we're doing today will be put in that agenda as well as being put in the chat.
So here we have some housekeeping issues. The nuts and bolts, it's about what we need to think about and what we expect to do. So this PD is going to be recorded, just so that everybody knows. And if you have questions, please make use of the chat box there on your right-hand side. And we are going to make sure that those questions are going to be addressed. And if you would like to share something, you can use the hand feature, which is under the participants icon down at the bottom of your screen. You see the participants icon, and when you open that, then you're going to see the non-verbal feedback features. And the first one is the hand that you raise. And at the end, you are going to be given an exit ticket, and it's going to be there linked in the slide, and also it's going to be posted to your chat box. Next.
Okay, so we are going to ask for folks that are participating to change their name. You just sort of hover over yourself, and there should be 3 dots, and it will tell you to rename. We need something specific for our breakout groups today. So if you are a teacher that teaches K-2, somewhere in the K-2 range, put the number 1 and then your name. You can see the example here. I have the number 1 and then my name. If you're a 3 to 5 teacher, put the number 2 and then your name. You don't put my name, put your name. And then if you're a 6 to 8 teacher, put the number 3. We're going to be going into breakout groups by grade band, and so this is an easy way for Sarah to be able to do the breakout groups and populate them quickly. So when you get a chance, please rename yourself. And if you have questions or concerns about that, you can put something in the chat and we'll try to address it.
All right, so our agenda today is going to address 5 things. The first one is the question, what is number talks? Then the purpose of number talks. Then we're going to elaborate on the guiding principles of number talks. Then we are going to go over the number talks protocol, and the last piece is number talks in action and practice.
All right. So most of us have done number talks in our classroom. We have been using number talks. But when you hear about the words and number talks, what phrase or words come into your mind once you hear the word number talks? So you're going to complete a Menti activity. Can you please put the Menti link on the chat? You can also use the QR code to log into your phone and answer the question. What words or phrases come to mind when you think about number talks? So we have about 3 minutes to do that poll. And I'm going to be sharing my screen in a few so that we'll see what folks are entering.
If you use your phone and your camera, you can hover over that QR code. You can use the camera in case you've never done that before. All right, I'm going to stop. I'm going to give you another 30 seconds, and then I'll stop sharing for notation.
So I'm going to share my screen, and we'll see the responses. Probably, yep, good. Solving problems as a group, strategies, I noticed, mental math, thinking and sharing, fluency, explaining thinking, awesome. Different strategies. Oh my goodness, wonderful. More, we need more. I know that some of them are hiding behind my thing here. You guys can see, yeah. Remember, there's no right or wrong answer, so anything that comes into your mind, just thinking about the words. One more minute.
Could you show the QR code one more time? It's
also up here on the screen. Can you see my screen? Stacy, you're muted.
I know. I think some folks might want to.
Yeah, so put it over with that.
Let's switch real quick.
You want the QR code? Okay. So switch. That's okay.
It should be in the agenda too, but we can switch.
Don't show it. Switch. That's okay. Let's stop sharing.
Yep. Why does it do that? Okay, hold on, folks. There it is.
Okay.
So if you hover your camera over that, it should bring you to it if you want to use your phone. But you can do it on your computer with the links that are in the chat, or you can do it with the links that are in the interactive agenda if you were able to open that as well.
For those of you that just came in, the instruction was given that you rename yourself. If you are a K to 2 teacher, put the number 1 before your name. If you're a 3 to 5 teacher, put the number 2 before your name. And if you are a middle school teacher, put the number 3 before your name. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing again so you can
share my screen. Let's see more names. Yep, more has been added. Community of, yep, safety sharing, wrong answers, awesome. Creative thinking and sharing. These are all amazing ideas of what can be happening in number talks. All right, 30 seconds more and we'll move on so that we'll be able to complete what we have for this session. If you're not able to share now, to add your ideas, you can always do that as we continue. But for the sake of time, I'm going to stop sharing so we can move on. Thank you all that participated. Next slide, Stacy. So now that we have reflected on what we think when we hear the word number talks, we're going to answer the question, what is number talks? But before we go into that, I just want to give a brief context about how this routine came into being. So the author of Number Talks, Parrish, which was published in 2010, was a math coach at that time. So she was doing a classroom observation, and she entered into this second grade classroom. And the students were solving the problem 17 minus 6. 17 take away 6. So as she was going around and observing students doing the work, she came to this child And she noticed that this student has stacked the numbers up on with the, you know how we do the vertical notation of US standard algorithm notation. That's what the child did. So she stacked 13 and 6 under it. And then he crossed out the 3 and crossed out the 1 and took the 1 and put it next to the 3 and said now she now has 13. So it's going to be 7. So she asked this child, so what did you do? Why did you decide to stack it up and cross out this? And the child said, that's just the way it should be done. If you have subtracting a bigger number from a smaller number, that's how you do. You need to cross out, you need to borrow the 1. And she was like, there's something about this. This is already 13, and you're still crossing out and you're still making the same number 13, no difference. So she said that something must be going on, that this child does not actually have an accurate number sense. Because if the child has number sense, there's so many ways she could have done that math without actually crossing and doing all that stuff. So that is how this number talks came into being. And we see that this thing is happening in our classroom every day. And that's more reason why we have to make number talks an integral part of our math instruction at least 3 times a week for it to have the desired impact where children are developing fluency and with conceptual understanding, not by rote learning, not rote memorization. So that is why she created number talks, that teachers can do that in their classroom 3 times a week in order to develop this fluency with small numbers and the idea of numbers as a whole. So that's how number talks came to be. So now we are going to look at the definition that the author gave in the book, and let us see how that how it aligns with some of the ideas that we have. So number talks can be best described as classroom conversations around purposefully crafted computation problems that are solved mentally. So I want you to think about that. Which 3 phrases or words jumped out at you based on this definition? You can put your ideas in the chat. Yep. Oh, hold on. I have to see the chat. Somebody says you can reading out what they're entering in the chat. I see the word crafted. I see number sense. But thinking about in this definition, what are the words that jump out of you? Yeah. Out for you. I see classroom conversation. I see mentally. I see purposefully. Awesome. All right. So those are the key words that jump out when you think about this word. So number talks is a classroom conversation. It is not the teacher lecturing the student. It is not the teacher being the sole authority of learning in the classroom. It's a conversation where the students and the teachers are interacting with the ideas as a class, as a group. And it is around purposefully crafted problems, which means that the problems are not just selected randomly. You don't say, oh, yesterday my student was struggling with this number, let me just do that for number talks. No. They are carefully crafted. It means that they are related. There's a relationship between one problem and the other. And students should be able to use those relationships while they are solving the problem in order to make sense and better have a connection from one problem to the other. And it is solved mentally. It means that there is no pencil and there is no paper when this is happening in the classroom. This is just for the student to be able to think and use everything that they know about numbers while they are trying to solve the problem. Thank you. Next one.
Okay, so we want to just, Nonia discussed a lot of these, but just to remind folks about what the key components of a number talk are, right? So it is important to have built a classroom community. Some folks in the chat had said things like being able to make mistakes and wrong answers and taking risks, and all of those things are really important for number talks to work. It's not about who's right, it's about displaying students' thinking. As stated, it's really about a discussion. You want students to not just share their strategies, but you want questions that the teacher facilitates that connects different strategies. Like, where do you see this strategy is connected to this one? Does anyone see how they made similar steps or different, doing comparisons, those kinds of things? So it's not just a share. The teacher's role shifts, right? You're not the one that's sharing how to do things. You're letting the students share how they do things and the ways that they're coming up with it. It is, as Noni said, mental math. They are not writing things down. I know that we tend to want to let some of our kids write things down. We say that they have a hard time doing it in their heads. But number talks are designed for mental math. So we do not recommend doing a scaffold or for certain kids access for them to write it down, because that's a different type of mathematics. This is really about mental fluency. So if you want to start off with the types of activities that all kids can access, that's the way you would like to do this. And there's lots of different ways. We're going to show you a bunch of different ones. You can even use like dot images with middle school kids and really get kids to think about how they see things. So there's ways to do it so that all kids can do it mentally. And you want them to be purposeful, right? You want to think very strategically about the problems that you're choosing. They should be designed to be done in mental math. So at the end of this PD, you'll see there's some links to some of the documents that have some of the number talk problems in them. Because you don't want to just put any problem up for number talks, because not all problems are designed to be done mentally. And there are some problems that you probably do need to write down or use a calculator, and they're very difficult to do in your head. So it's strategic and purposeful, and you want to make sure that that's it. And if you're doing a string of them, you want them to be related to each other in some way, so kids can use how they solved one to help them solve another. All right.
Thanks.
Now you guys get to do stuff.
All right, so this slide is going to take us about 15 minutes. So we are going to delve ourselves into the guiding principles, the theoretical underpinnings of number talks. So on the side there in the chat box, you're going to see a link to a PDF that is going to take you to a reading called Guiding Principles. So we're going to spend about 7 minutes to read the Guiding Principles. Read as much as you can in that PDF. And in 7 minutes, we are going to bring it together so that we can go into breakout rooms with all that theory that we acquired, and then we are going to share out our knowledge in a Jamboard. So 7 minutes. So Sarah, could you please do the breakout rooms? And in 7 minutes, we will bring them together. All right, so now we're going to bring it together. And what we are going to do is a Jamboard. So you are going to be sent to breakout rooms, and as soon as you see your breakout rooms in the chat box, you are going to see the link to a folder. This is not a file, it's a folder. So when you open the folder, you are going to see this. So you're going to see a list of files, and the files are going to have the name of your room. It's going to be room 1, room 2, room 3, and there you're going to have the number that the breakout rooms gave you. So Sarah, could you please make the breakout rooms now with 5 people, please? Okay, Sarah, let's bring them together.
Great. Everyone should be back now.
All right, so let's bring it together. Now that we had the opportunity to elaborate on all those very critical questions of what does it mean to pry from the students their conceptual understanding, and the importance of examining student thinking and building on that thinking, making sure that we have them apply those new concepts to new situations through this numerical reasoning. I would like to call your attention also to the use of the tool that you just used, the Jamboard, which is a collaborative platform that you can use yourselves with your students in your rooms, in your virtual rooms. So that allows students to use the text feature with the stickies that can also be color coded. They can use the free handwriting. They can use the text box. So, and that is one more Google tool in the drive. So it's free for everybody. It should be in your teacher accounts once you have a Google account. So thank you very much for participating in those breakout rooms. It was insightful to have that experience and to elaborate on the principles and the theoretical underpinnings of number talks. Now, Stacy is going to guide you through the next slide. Stacy, you are muted.
I know. I had a very messy desktop. I'm very sorry. That was something you got to see. Okay, so I was telling my group, we're going to do another Jamboard in a few minutes where we're going to actually do some number talks. And we'll have more time when we're in that one. So if you got flummoxed by the Jamboard in the first session, don't worry. We're going to try it again in a little bit. For most of us, the middle school folks might not, but we'll show when we get back what those Jamboards look like. So don't worry. Okay. What we're going to do is I just want to go over with you, for those of you that might be new to what the number talks protocol looks like, right? So it's a very particular protocol. It's designed this way intentionally. So basically, the first thing is that the facilitator will present a problem. So I'm just going to scroll down for a second to show like this idea of like this could be a particular problem. So you present a problem. And then you're going to allow the participants, your students, to solve it mentally. Remember, this is all mental math. So no paper and pencil. And they're going to then display a silent visual cue for when they have figured out a solution strategy. That silent cue usually looks something like this, with a thumb up. Now, we're very particular about this cue. We do not want students waving and raising their hand, I have an answer, right? It's deliberate because we want students to have a chance to think, and folks think at different paces, obviously. So if you're waving your hand as a kid, it can distract other kids from continuing to think because they're like, oh, somebody else has it. So we want it to be very personal and to your chest and quiet. And then what we say is, if you have a strategy, maybe you want to think of a second strategy. Pardon my dog. And then they'll have a second strategy to think about, maybe even a third while everyone's thinking. So that silent visual cue is really important. Then this facilitator will ask for answers, not for strategies yet, just answers. So like the one that I showed you before, kids might say, 237, 535, 321, whatever their answer is. It's not a solution yet. You just answers, and you record all the answers that you get. I've done it where I do tally marks if there's multiple of the same one, but you record everyone's answers, as many answers as you can get. Sometimes they're all the same answer. Sometimes you only have two options, whatever it is, but you want to make sure you record the answers. And then you'll call on folks to justify how they got that answer. And then they will explain to you, and you as the facilitator record exactly what they're saying to you, and you're welcome to ask clarifying questions. Is this what you meant? Did I display this correctly? And all of that. So you want to try to just record what they said. There's always this attempt, kids might say, I did 10 times 20, and you write 10 times 20, and then you write equals 200. But they didn't say that. So you don't want to put in what they didn't say. So try to be careful of that. It's very tempting to do that, so you want to be careful of that. So that's basically how the protocol works. All right. So now we get to the fun part. We're going to practice our number talk. So this is, again, where you're going to get put back into your same breakout groups by grade level. But before you go, but also those of us that are facilitators, so we'll do this in both places. We'll put it in the chat now. We'll put the K to 2 Jamboard in the chat and the 3 to 5 Jamboard in the chat. But those of us that are going to go back to the group, so I'm going to be with the 3 to 5 group. Nonia will be the K to 2 group. Armando's going to be with the 6 to 8 group. They will repost the Jamboard in the chat, so no worries if you don't get it right now. And we're going to go through some number talks with you. We're going to practice this out and do some number talks. All right, so we're going to break out into our groups. You should get a breakout group option again.
So we are finished, and everybody has had a little experience of number talks in their group, in their grade band. Unfortunately, we might not have gotten through all of them, but that's just a little simulation of what might happen in the classroom. And this is the first time we are doing it virtually, and we know that we have to be doing it 3 times a week. So the more we practice how to do it, the better for us. We find that Jamboard very friendly, because you can create the Jamboards in advance and use that with your kids while you are with them on Zoom. Normally, number talks takes anywhere between 5 to 15 minutes by what the authors recommended. So we're trying to work to get it to 10 minutes where you complete at least 2 problems. Normally 2 to 3. So if you go to the number talks book, you find that the problems are put in categories based on the strategy that they are pushing for. So you select the groups A, B, C. So group A might have 3 problems or 2 problems or 4 that are related, and the goal is that you share all those problems in one number talk session. But sometimes we find out that they have a rich discussion that we are not able to cover all 4 or all 3. That's still okay, but at least try to get to 2 and have a rich discussion with them, because the whole goal is for the kids to develop this conceptual understanding of numbers and how they operate and how they behave when we operate on them. So the next slide here is what elements of the number talks experience resonated with you. Please put your response in the chat. And what challenges do you anticipate with doing number talks with your students? Please, we will appreciate you putting those responses on the chat. Challenges, student knowing basic number facts. So with that one, that is part of why we are doing the number sense. It's not about memorizing any facts. The facts will come naturally once they get familiar with numbers and the size of numbers and what numbers do when you operate on them, how they behave. Those number facts will come naturally. You're not going to sit down and memorize anything. And the goal is that you start with what you think everybody can do. So you don't go and choose a very complex problem. So just to build their stamina and to invite them into the conversation, start very little. Like for the kindergarten, they start as simple as 1 dot, and then they go to 2 dots, and they go to 3 dots. So it's kids that already know 1 and 2 dots. If you find that your class already know it, there's no point wasting time starting at the 1 dot image. Go to 3 and go to 4 so that they can see. And progressively, it grows as the days goes by until they get to the point where they are going to start using expressions, using numbers, numerical expressions. You start with visuals first, and then 5th frame, and then 10th frame, and then double 10th frame before you go into using numerical expressions to show number talks. So that's one of the things. So you are not expecting that the kids will memorize all the number facts. That's one thing we want to discourage.
And you can definitely I've used dot images with my middle schoolers before. You can definitely use dot images, possibly not the ones that are in this PowerPoint, but there are lots of dot images that you can use that are much more challenging and have, like multiplication embedded within them that you can use as a way to get kids used to using number talks and not feeling as nervous about them, and then being willing to do them.
Yes, I love that everyone wants to give a different answer. So you have to. That's why you have to be very intentional and very strategic about who you're calling. How many people do you want to call? If you have a problem where the first person gave you the correct answer, it's always good to ask, does anyone have a different answer? Somebody might have, somebody might not have, because it depends on how simple the problem is. All of them will come up with the answer. But there are situations where there are multiple answers that are different. So you can take at least 3 options. 1, 2, 3, or at most 4. If then others will say, oh, my answer is already up, they put the check mark. Because I have seen teachers that want to call 25 students in your classroom. By the time you finish calling 25 students in your classroom to say, oh, my answer is there, your time for number talks is over. So you have to be very strategic. But keep track of who you call. Let the kids know that I don't have to call you today, but by the time the week runs out, I will definitely call everybody at least once. If I don't call you to share your solution, I will call you to share a strategy. So let them know that so that they will not get frustrated, so that you don't have to always call that one whose hand goes up first. You don't always have to call them. Keep a track of who you have called. You have that Johnny in your classroom who does not like to talk in the classroom. Work with Johnny. Tell Johnny today in number talks, I'm going to be calling on you. And make sure that maybe the very first problem, which is always the simplest one, you are using Johnny to share their thinking so that you invite Johnny. And once you do that, the ice is broken. Subsequent ones, they will feel free. Sometimes ask them to do turn and talk, to share their strategy with somebody else, at least so that somebody else, at least one more person in the classroom has heard them, even if they don't share in the whole class. They have shared with somebody else on the small group before you bring them together. So either way, it works fine that way too.
There was somebody that had said something about kids getting used to this because they don't have paper and pencil or their charts or other things like that. And that is true. That's why sometimes using dot images is a great way to break the ice and then move into numerical expressions. But, slowly but surely kids start to become much more flexible in their thinking, and that's sort of the goal. But you definitely, if you have a group of students who this would make them anxious to start with numerical, start with dot images and get them to start to see all the different ways they can subitize and come up with equations.
Yeah, and if you go into the number talks book, it's all organized by grade level. So if your kids are really struggling, that is why it is very good for this unfinished learning, to address unfinished learning. If your students are really struggling with some concept, if you are a third grade teacher and they are really struggling with some concept that from second grade, number talks might be a place to address those concepts. Number talks might be a way, a segue to get into that thinking for the kids, so that they will get to know how to do those things instead of trying to say, oh, let me just stop everything I'm doing and go and start teaching second grade work. So I use number talks to fill those learning missed opportunities from the COVID-19 school closure. What else do I have to say? Number talks has to be done at least 3 days a week, not once. If you want to have the desired impact on your student and on your mathematics achievement scores, it has to be done consistently 3 days a week. You are strategic. If you are focusing on, if you want your kids to learn how to multiply by rounding numbers up and compensating, you have to stick with that strategy for at least 2 weeks, giving them different problems that lend itself to that kind of thinking. If you want the children to learn how to add on, it is organized in that way in the book, so that there's always something that you are focusing on. Based on what you are seeing in your core instruction, you go to that number talks book and select problems that will help you address that. I've had teachers that will just take the book, that's the book, you pick it, and you start going page by page. It's not meant for that. Look at all the categories of questions that you have and select which one will best solve the problem or address the concern that you have with your students' mathematical learning. And for those of you that are in upper grade, this other book, you have the link also there. Making Number Talks Matters is for grade 4 to 10. So all the way to 10th grade, you have it. And then sometimes I always encourage teachers, after you have worked on a particular strategy for 2 weeks, like on a Friday, give them a word problem that they will apply that strategy. Then they will do it pencil and paper so that you will see who is actually gaining from the idea that we are sharing in class. That will be your some kind of formative assessment and some kind of artifact of what your children are learning in number talks. Pencil and paper word problem 1 at the end of the week after you have tried the strategy for a period of time. Right.
Okay, so we threw a lot at you in a very short amount of time, including how to use Jamboard. So relax. So what we have is a bunch of resources. So Sarah will put I'm going to have her put the link to the interactive agenda one more time in case you didn't get it earlier. And in that interactive agenda, there's going to be a bunch of resources for you. All of the links from this presentation, including the slide deck, will be put in that interactive agenda. There's going to be all these additional resources at the bottom, including for K to 5, the PDFs that have examples of number talk questions. Also in this, there is going to be a sample lesson plan for how to lesson plan for number talks as well as a template. So you're welcome to look at that and browse it and decide. You're going to have, these are the different pages of what the number talk books look like. Most schools should have this book in their building somewhere because we bought them for all of the schools many years ago, so it also could have disappeared with the Math Facilitator. But we did not, these other books didn't exist at the time, but they do. So some folks might have these, but these are the images. You can get them on Amazon. They're not terribly expensive. So you are going to have resources at the bottom of your interactive agenda that help you. One of the resources is literally how to do a Jamboard. So we have those resources for you as well. Our emails are there, so you're welcome to email us at any point and ask questions. If for some reason you aren't getting the interactive agenda for some strange reason or whatnot, just email us also, and we'll be happy to get that for you. So now the link is in the chat of the exit ticket because it's now time to go. The link is in the chat. Please fill it out because I believe this is how you get your PDPs for attending this session and how you can prove for your required PD time that you attended. So fill it out so you can make sure you're filling that requirement.